Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome, and welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. I wanted to just give a brief energetic update on some of the things I've been seeing in the field, experiencing, and just be really human for a minute here. I want to say thank you for taking the time and the energy to feel into and to listen to what I have to share. And I'm just going to go into a little flow. And one of the biggest messages that I've been receiving after I go into a little just brief synopsis of what I've been experiencing. I haven't been posting as much because I've been experiencing so much, and my schedule has been quite packed with not only work, which isn't really work when you're doing sessions and working with other people, but it's still work. It requires scheduling, and it requires time, it requires energy. And simultaneously, I'm experiencing life, my own life, and communicating and connecting not only with my husband and my family and my friends. It's a balancing act, and that's kind of the theme that continually has been coming up for me over and over again, is balance. And I recently had a little bit of a health scare, we could say. And as a healer, some of you may have experienced this before, where you're able to see everybody else's stuff except for your own. Have you ever felt like you could kind of figure everything out except what was going on in your own life? This doesn't just have to be for energetic healers, but it can also be for tarot card readers or people who have intuitive abilities. Sometimes it's easier for us to see what's going on for someone else, but not be able to really understand our own body or understand our own emotions. And it helps sometimes to have that outside perspective looking in order to better understand what's inside being reflected back to us. I have a lot of things going on in my family currently, and many of us do. I won't say we all do, but many of us are going through stuff. And one of the biggest messages that I receive time and time again, I'm going to give a synopsis of exactly what I'm receiving when I work with people right now. Feel it. We're here to experience, as a human, feelings and emotions. We're here to have an experience that is unique and individual. And one of the biggest things we're seeing are people who aren't feeling. They feel unable to feel. And this comes from this conditioning that many of us are witnessing, or many of us have participated in, whether we were consciously participating or unconsciously participating. We're always participating in social media, in perhaps watching television or listening to the radio. So there's always this constant interaction that we're having with these outside influences. And the biggest message is, don't be so hard on ourselves. Lighten up. So the 5 top messages that I've been getting when I've been working with fellow humans, whether it be in intuitive session, whether it be energetic healing, energy healing, whether it be coaching and just conversation, whether it be just in friendship and talking, is unplug. Unplugged from time to time. Don't be feeding fear, consciously or unconsciously. Recognize when we are. Let go. Don't hang on so tightly to a particular reality or outcome or expectation. Find balance, and we'll come back to that because that's kind of the theme for this video. And just don't be so hard on ourselves. We have this, and on each other. We are these beings We're fractals of the one source from one perspective. So we are all pieces of the puzzle, and the puzzle is all connected. Whether we want to see it or acknowledge it or not, it's true. So it really does begin with us. Many people are looking outside of themselves for a revelation, a revolution, an answer. And sometimes we need that, as I was using that example earlier in my health situation. And it really is about us creating the balance. We are the balancers. We are the center until we're not. And then we're part of the seesaw. Oh, I'm ready to go in a flow right now. Whew. Lots of stuff coming in. All right. We're not always going to make the highest vibrational, most appropriate choices in our lives. Sometimes we're going to screw up. One of the things I've learned from tuning in to the other side, beings that have maybe passed on, whether it's from this lifetime or other lifetimes, from tuning into the guides, tuning into my higher self, is that on the other side, and you'll hear this a lot too in stories about near-death experiences. If you guys haven't checked out NDEs, I highly encourage you to do that, because it gives you a perspective. It's given me a different perspective on what it's like on the other side. And then I do tune in from time to time to beings who have passed on. And it isn't what we think it is, number one. Never what I think it is. It's always different. And number two, the biggest message is love. The choices that we make do have a ripple effect. They do impact us. They're all interwoven. Our energy is a tapestry of light, frequency, sound, harmonics. And this frequency is set out from our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions and our actions. But also keep in mind that we're human. We are not always going to make the highest vibrational choices or have the happiest thoughts all the time, because part of what we came here to do was experience everything from one perspective. From another perspective, if and when we make a choice that isn't necessarily in the highest vibration, integrity, expansiveness, peacefulness, happiness, joy, bliss, it's okay. And we're really being called not to be so hard on ourselves or be so hard on each other. Our thought patterns oftentimes, yes, they are a reflection of what's going on internally, but we have a lot of outside influences that are wreaking havoc from one perspective on a lot of the choices that we think we have to make. That's kind of a play on words. We're being guided. If we watch TV, if we ever go on social media, if we ever hang out with people that we really admire or look up to, who we want them to give us validation, I could go on and on. If we are listening to the radio, so just those in alone, we all do from time to time, most of us listening. If not, it's probably because we live off grid, and you wouldn't be watching this if you live off grid, most likely. So having said that, there's always going to be some influence, whether it's conscious, we're conscious of it, or it's happening at a subconscious level, or unconsciously even, no matter what. So this brings it back to balance. We're not always going to be what we think we need to be. And that's where one of the biggest issues, and I'm going to call it an issue, because when I say issue, I hear handing out. It's being handed out to us. Here's your story. Here's what you should look like. And by the way, if you don't look like that, you should feel like this. And here's how you should feel when you look at this or watch this. And if you're not feeling that way, then there might be something wrong with you. And here's the solution. Try this, try that, and you will feel this and look like that. And when you look like this and feel like that, other people will feel this way about you. And I could go on and on and on and play with those words, right? So we're constantly being corralled into particular thought patterns, habit patterns, reactions, triggers, so on and so forth. And this is creating distortion, a distortion in the field that we are all interwoven within, this tapestry of reality, these photons of interchanging plasma and light waves, electricity, that we are all part of, that we are all connected to, that we are all woven into the fabrics of our body, into the fabric of space-time that surrounds us, that we are all poured out of, molded and filling up air, ether, water, the elements. So how do we find our own unique individual expression when this is constantly being pushed on us? We're constantly being pushed or pulled in certain directions. And continually, I find people looking outside of themselves for fill in the blanks. And more people are becoming, so many words, disillusioned. But the biggest word that comes through is imbalanced. They feel that in order to balance out their reality, they must follow a particular idea, concept, habit pattern of what that reality should look like, how they should be interacting with it. And if they don't feel the way that they should be feeling, then they turn on themselves and therefore turn on other people. And when I say that, we could play with that word. What we think turns us on oftentimes is because of a pattern that we have been told, taught, or followed that we think is how it works. Turn this device on by pushing this button. This is what you should use in order to turn on the power. And we could use that even in sexuality, sensuality as well. To turn something on, right? Bring it online or turn it in a particular direction, looking onward. I mean, we could play with this in so many different ways. So we're being called to get back into our own center. Because when we're constantly looking outside of ourselves, judging ourselves, reacting to what we are not, or what people think of us, or how we should be thinking of other people, do I fit in? We lose our awareness. We lose our senses. And let me go into that a little deeper. We lose our sensibility. We use our ability to sense what it is that really turns us on, that really lights our fire, that really motivates us, because we think we're motivated by whatever it is we've been in the habitual pattern of turning towards, of utilizing to give us power. We think that's what we need, when in actuality, it's like we think, therefore we are. No, we are, therefore we think. So it's a little backwards. And this causes a disconnect. We disconnect from a sense of who we really are. And so this leads me back to, there are many of us who have a heightened awareness right now. And because everything is, it's like everybody's fingers are in a light socket right now. So everybody is, well, let me rephrase that. Not everyone, many of us are highly sensitized right now, while simultaneously, there are many of us who are highly desensitized right now because that sense of self has been lost in translation. So much, we're so busy thinking, trying to translate, that it gets lost, and then boop, disconnect happens, and it's hard to find that true connection back to who we really are. And who are we really? Well, we are all unique individual expressions of the fractal. We're all fractals of, right, source energy, or this interwoven tapestry of electricity and particles and waves and energy and all of this. We've been so busy trying to define and compartmentalize our senses and grab onto something, give me something to believe in. That old Poison song or somebody. I'm just saying that it can go either way. So we're really being called to be in balance. And I'm speaking from experience. It's not always easy to be in balance. I find myself getting pulled in many different directions at times. And the easiest way for me to find balance is through breathing and any possible way to find a sense of relaxation. Whatever works. There is no one way. There is no right or wrong way. But by us lightening the load, letting go of all this stuff that we're hanging on to about how we think we should or how others think we should, blah, blah, blah. And just getting back to the basics. I started doing this channel, Keep It Simple Starseeds, because so many people were going so far into the details about certain things that oftentimes I would get lost in the translation of it all and get frustrated or confused. And I certainly don't always simplify in the way that I am now. Sometimes I go into flow and it's not simple at all from one perspective. From another perspective, it's very simple because it's just language. But my point is that the more we simplify and bring it back into the basics, we stop looking for someone else to tell us what we should be feeling, thinking, how we should feel, how we should look, how we should eat, what we should believe in, how our future should look, what's going to happen in our future. And we stop making our plans based around all of that. And we start coming back to the original plan, the original blueprint, imprinted on the rhythm of the heart. And while this can seem very simple, if we are in a state of disconnect and we're not feeling anything, it is very challenging to get back to the basics. However, getting back to the basics is the only way we find those senses again. And then we can make sense out of, and I've done a lot of videos about making sense out of the insensibility. We tune into our bodies, our breathing, our feeling, and everything else starts to become a little bit easier. One breath at a time. I found myself really beating myself up at times in the last few months. I found myself making choices and realizing that I made choices that perhaps weren't necessarily of the highest vibration, and then I beat myself up even more. And then I found myself getting lost in these judgments about myself. And I could go on and on and on. And guess what? Slowly, I became more disillusioned with myself. And I'm saying this because I do feel it's important to talk about these things. Yet I also am owning it. There is no blame. I don't blame this on my past life. I don't blame this on my ancestral karma. I'm not blaming this on the controllers or the system. I'm not blaming it on GMOs or any other associated types of things. Those are all part of what we are connected to. So if everything is connected, then how can I blame it on those things? It all comes back to my responsibility in order to see those things I just listed and more from a perspective that is a higher state of awareness. And if I'm not in a higher state of expansiveness or awareness, and let's say I judge those things as evil or wrong or right, that's okay too. And then when I accept that I'm in that place, the change can begin. I can really start to go, wow, I was feeling a lot of anger over that genetically modified food trap that we are all connected to. And because of that, I felt like my body was going through some physical need to detox. And I could blame it on these big companies that create these products and put things in our air and put things in our water, et cetera, et cetera. But that only creates a pattern, which is a habit. It's a pattern of thinking, which sends out a wave into the field. And the more I do that, the more of a habit it becomes, and the more it affects my frequency, which gets lower, 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 more disconnected from who I really am. And that anger can then turn into frustration. They can, or all whatever order we want to put things in, puts me into linearity, puts me into making choices that maybe have a ripple effect in my field that I would never have been making had I have not gone into that place of fear, anger, frustration. But that's okay, because by going into those places, I was able to then process, integrate, assess, and realign back to the center and find my balance again. And this is how we do it. This is how we do it. We're humans. This is how it works. So we might have these really big highs. I mean, to go from, and this is my perspective, I can go into the field. I used to be able to see far in advance. My friends call me future predictors, and I still can in some cases. To be able to see my past lives, to be able to see auras, sometimes, not all the time, to be able to speak with loved ones that have gone into other dimensions and realms, to be able to communicate and play with language, and then to get brought back down into this body, into anger, into frustration, into manifesting in this human form that anger and frustration in a potential disease. Right? Many of us have been there, done that. And then to potentially influence my field in that negative energy, which makes it even worse once we realize we're doing that. We go, oh, I can't believe I've been doing that. I've been having this impact, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, got a phone call. Not sure exactly where that landed, where I was going with that. So let's go into a little flow. I might have been on a good run, but I think I was just basically talking about us not being so hard on ourselves and how this comes into patterns and how this continues to create our reality. And we do have a huge impact, more so than we even know. My guides are constantly saying, you don't even know how big you are. So just as much as we can have a negative impact, by the way, in our field, I just want to kind of end on this note and then go into a little flow. Just as much when we realize that we've been maybe behaving as we might see badly, as light workers, as humans, as people who genuinely care about other people, we're not always going to be that way. Even if we're negative on ourselves, oftentimes we're nice to other people. So there always is, there's going to be, as long as we're in that space of gratitude, even for other people, if we can't find it for ourselves, that still has that balancing ripple effect somewhat. But eventually, that isn't balanced fully. So that will lead us into manifesting some of those lower, I say negative because that's what we call them, but it's not really negative. It's just a different frequency. It's either a higher frequency or it's a lower vibration. And so what I'm really being called to remind everybody is we're going to oscillate. We're going to have this human experience, and it may manifest, if we have it enough over and over again, into something physical. It may manifest in an interaction with a friend or coworker that maybe we didn't intend for it to be negative, but that's how it ended up rippling because of whatever is being reflected back to us in our experience. So I just want to say that getting our balance back and finding our center and forgiving ourselves, forgiving each other, looking at another person when they're rude to us or when they're speaking about something that they really know nothing about, yet they have a very strong opinion. It's not about us judging them. Oh, bless your heart. That person just doesn't know any better. That in itself is a judgment, because ultimately it doesn't matter if they know or if they don't know based on our own opinion. It's about us taking and holding space for ourselves to fully appreciate the other human and recognize and witness that they're going through an experience too. That they're experiencing something in a way that maybe we don't agree with. And very similarly, they may not be agreeing with what our experience is. And it's kind of like walk a mile in their shoes situation. We never know what kind of shoes they're really walking in until we are in it. And sometimes that requires us to be in it. It requires us to drop down an octave. It requires us to get in the mud and the muck and to feel dirty, right? Get our boots dirty. It requires us to feel like we need to cleanse, change our diet, change our thought patterns, recognizing that, wow, I really got into this space. But ultimately, that is feeling, and that is feeling our humanity. And so I really just want to encourage everyone, don't be afraid to be a human, and don't be afraid to have an experience or to be in it. And we're being called not to think less of ourselves. I'm getting a little emotional. Whew. Because when we think less of ourselves, that's what doesn't make sense. And I'm playing on the words here. The senses, the abilities, that doesn't add up. It doesn't bring us up, and it doesn't have the higher effect in the field or the tapestry that we're weaving together. So we might have that from time to time, but again, how long are we doing that on a regular basis? Are we habitually doing this? And if so, maybe it's time to ask ourselves why. It might be time for us to reach out and ask for help. Go see a therapist. Go have hypnotherapy. Do a past life regression. Get a reading from an intuitive that you feel that you can trust, that you feel good about. Get a tarot card reading just for fun. Have a little fun. Go have a sound bath. Try some type of my friend Jess and Candace and I were just talking about light therapy, right? Do something, get outside of the comfort zone. Go get acupuncture. It is sometimes just about making that one decision to make a shift. And that one decision can have a big enough ripple effect. When I say ripple, it's a vibration. So it shakes off the old debris and allows us to breathe for a moment. And when we breathe for a moment, all of a sudden, things aren't as heavy as they were a minute ago. And that minute to minute, one breath to the next is enough to pull us out of the dirt, pull us out of the mud and the muck, pull us out of our boots, and we can leave those ugly boots behind with compassion. And that's my message. I'm going to do a separate video with light language. So in love and light, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is my energetic update into what I've been. I just really wanted to come out from my heart and share my own personal experiences and what I've been seeing in healing work. So in love and light, guys, thank you so much. Namaste.